to our weekly Black Diaspora News Podcast. Let's begin.
All right, and we are now live. So greetings of peace to everyone, and welcome to this very first edition of the Black Diaspora News Podcast, which is dedicated to the discussion of important news topics affecting our North American and European diaspora from Africa, the Caribbean, and Central and South America, while connecting with the struggle of our brothers and sisters in Black America. This week on BDN, the topic of discussion will be coming straight from a reading of the latest edition of the Final Call newspaper. This edition deals with actually the uniting Africa and the U.S. Black diaspora to forge a new global economic destiny. And I'm here joined by my colleague, Brother Abdul Sabir, and Brother Gabriel X will be joining us very shortly as we dive into this. Now, we want to say to everyone, essentially, this is an opportunity where we can get to share. So don't hesitate to make sure that you're sharing and like and subscribe. All right. But before that, let me go to a quick interlude.
There is a need in our community for a universal change. And it has to start with the man. Being a man of God means being a man possessed of the knowledge, the spirit, and the power of God, anointed to do his will. To build a people, you first must make man. Every man, no matter what his color, no matter what his race, every man, in order to be a man, must be a man of God, or he's not a man at all. Let us make man.
All right, so let's get into the article. I'm going to add my brother Gabriel X. If you're able to get your camera on. All right, there he is. Yes, sir. So let's get into the reading. And after the reading, we will go into a short discussion. So this is an article by Sister Anissa Muhammad. And as we mentioned, the title, Uniting Africa and the U.S. Black Diaspora to Forge a New Global Economic Destiny. So we read, bridging the gaps between the African continent and the coast-to-coast diaspora was a big discussion point at the National Black Business Conference, which recently took place. The conference, hosted by the National Business League, the National Black Chamber of Commerce, and the World Conference of Mayors, welcomed African representatives from all over the continent. Present were the Minister of Information from Senegal, a special envoy from Uganda, the Ministry of Tourism from Kenya, Invest Barbados, and representatives from Gambia, the Ivory Coast, Mali, Tanzania, Ghana, and other countries. The conference was held August 24 to 26 at the Hyatt Regency, Atlanta. The keynote speaker at the conference's opening ceremony, Joy Bazu, serves as Deputy Assistant Secretary of State in the Bureau of African Affairs. She voiced her belief that the future depends on Africa, as in a few short decades, 1 in 4 people in the world will be African. The article continues. Dr. Tyree Wright of City University of New York followed behind in the Rebuilding Black Wall Street panel, saying how Africa is the seat of Black power and liberation. She gave the audience a history lesson on how Booker T. Washington was a key planner and promoter of the first Pan-African conference that took place in 1900. I actually did not know that until I read this article. Unity, quote, unity for the purpose of eradicating oppression and exploitation was the bonding factor during the first Pan-African conference, she said. A Pan-African diaspora global business panel took place in the afternoon of August 25th. Tammy Maxwell, acting senior vice president of the Office of Small Business at the Export-Import Bank of the United States, shared words on how the number one question African presidents ask is, where are our Black businesses? Many have trouble finding them, she said. Her goal is to connect Black businesses in the U.S. to Africa. She encouraged Black business owners to connect with the bank so that she can better connect the businesses to African officials. She also advocated for promoting business-to-business linkages between Black businesses in the U.S. and businesses in Africa. The spirit of diasporan unity was high during the International Fashion Show that took place later that evening. Conference attendees showed up in their best dressed African garb. Models were dressed and styled by African designers and stylists. Business Summit. The theme of unity between the continent and the diaspora continued the next day, August 25th, with a Pan-African Diaspora Black Business Summit, which ran concurrently with the conference's overall business workshops. The summit was put on by the National Alliance of Black Business, NAB, and presented by Prosper Africa. The first session was an all-women panel on bridging boundaries, igniting prosperity, discussion on fostering trust and collaboration between the African diaspora and Africa. Speaking on the relationship between Africa and the diaspora, the women acknowledged, we are one. They went into the challenges facing the diaspora community and the solutions. Challenges included the lack of cultural awareness and cultural competency within the diaspora, both sides not knowing one another, and the global systemic issues that promote division. Let's purpose in our mind that our lead thought, our controlling thought, I can work with my sister, Reverend Dr. Pamela Fomunung, President and CEO of Africa's Brain Bank, said. Once you have that lead thought, it doesn't matter what they say in the news. It doesn't matter what some enemy of progress tells us. Panelists throughout the summit brought up how many of America's largest cities are now being run by Black mayors and how historically Black colleges and universities have been at the forefront, of engaging the continent. The Prime Minister of Barbados and the President of Ghana are at every chance they get introducing the question of reparations, introducing the question of Black empowerment in the diaspora. Denise Kirkpatrick, Public Affairs International Executive for Vermerge Global, said, post George Floyd, the government of Equatorial Guinea took all of their students out of predominantly white institutions and put them in HBCUs. Imagine if all the students on the continent who come and study attend HBCUs. By the way, HBCUs are historically Black colleges and universities. Imagine what that would do to the economy of Black communities where most HBCUs are located, she added. Other points of discussion during the summit included Africa and the diaspora entering the global economy and uncovering the African diaspora's role in AGOA, or African Growth and Opportunity Act. Panelists identified the industries of agriculture and medicine as commercial opportunities across Africa. They spoke on the lack of infrastructure in the medical industry and the areas of investment. Summit panelists largely recognized the work that still has to be done regarding AGOA. At no point in our history has a U.S. instrument forged a connection with Africa. Dr. Nkem Kumba, chairman of Africa's Brain Bank, said of the act. Instead, he said the National Business Alliance should seek direct engagement with the African business community. An audience member from the Caribbean voiced his concern regarding AGOA. If you as Africans, you as African Americans do not go and ask for what you want, you won't get it, he said. Panelist Shaq Teasley, CEO and founder of Agate Solutions, introduced the idea of trilateral free trade agreements between the US, Africa, and the Caribbean, and making trade agreements between multiple nations as a strategy on how Black people in America, on the continent, and in the Caribbean can benefit from movement of goods throughout several nations that still support Black businesses. The last summit panel was on the topic of supporting African self-reliance and diaspora independence, positioning NABB, National Alliance of Black Business, as a resource for U.S.-Africa economic relations. The number of countries in Africa differ depending on the person asked. But Dr. Dennis Matanda, chief executive of Morgento Sterling Inc., settled on 55. He noted that the forefathers of Africa understood the essence of what it meant to have a united Africa, because they saw how powerful the 50 states of America were. He also challenged previous statements on China as a competitor to the US within Africa. China, he says, will not be the United States in Africa, especially because there's a bigger diaspora in the United States than in China, he said. Panelist Samuel Mwali questioned what everybody else sees about Africa that Africans in the diaspora do not see. Quote, everybody has a plan for Africa except us. China has a plan for Africa. Europe has a plan for Africa, he said. He advocated developing business-to-business linkages between Africa and the diaspora by fostering trust and taking advantage of Black business associations. He also mentioned the importance of Black business associations within the U.S. working with their African counterpart associations. He listed trust and confidence as two most important elements of business. Quote, the diaspora in the United States and the African businesses got to trust each other, got to have confidence in each other, he said. Tuskegee Mayor John Ford, who is the president of the World Conference of Mayors, voiced during the close of one of the sessions that a forum such as the one that took place makes no sense at all if all participants do not come out of it with a unified agenda to take to the President of the United States. Do we trust each other enough in the room here to be able to work together? Efe Ukala, founder of Imad Chehar, questioned. If we want to really get involved, deeply involved in solving the problems in Congo, in solving the problems that we experience in Ethiopia, Nigeria, can you look each other in the face to say, you know what, let's trust ourselves? All of this talk is all talk until we can do that, because no one person in this room is a single solution to Africa's problems, she added. A Kenyan attendee who does business advisory services between Kenya and the US recommended the creation of a communication hub. When I leave here, I don't want to leave everything on the desk, he said. He and other attendees voiced the importance of a follow-up. End of the article. All right. So that was a rather hefty article, so much to discuss. So we have with us Brother Abdul Sabir Muhammad and Brother Gabriel X. And we would like to hear from you, brothers. And while we hear from you, we also would like to hear from the audience. So make sure that your thoughts are shared in the comments. Go in the comments. Make sure you also give it a thumbs up. I see some people viewing live. Make sure you hit the thumbs up, because that helps the algorithm and that helps to promote and share this with your friends. So now let's go on to our two panelists. Looking forward to hear from you, brothers. So let us start with you, Brother Abdul Sabir. Maybe with some comments. What did you get from this article? How do you think this will impact our diaspora? You have to unmute yourself, brother.
Can you hear me now? Thank you so much, dear brother, Brother Roger, and my beloved brother Gabriel, who's present, and for all of those who are tuning in. Beautiful article. I would first like to thank the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for publishing such a beautiful Final Call newspaper. And there was so much in the article, it was rich. And there are certain points that, as a student, we can draw an extract. And the end of the article, the gentleman, he commented on having proper communication. I think he was from Kenya, to establish proper communication. And I think that is the key. And that is why the Final Call newspaper gives so much insight into geopolitics. Because in the article, the president of Barbados and the president of Ghana, someone mentioned that they always take the opportunity to speak about reparations. So the aspect that I would like to share on reparations, is what I got from the article that I saw from my perspective should be the foundation of a launching pad to go full steam ahead, linking the diaspora and to so-called Africa. And the reason I see it that way is because in the article mentions reparations, but they need to go into the meat and the substance and have more dialogue about reparations, the evil that was done by the former colonial masters on the African continent, what they continue to do, and what they continue to do with the blacks in the diaspora. And so that's the side that I believe in the communication aspects, that they need to go back to the next table discussion and come away with the actual facts of the of reparations, because the talk of reparations recently, it has entered into international forum. Leaders are talking about reparations. I heard the president at a BRICS meeting from Russia last month spoke about the transatlantic slave trade and the horror that was done to blacks that was taken out of Africa. Then I heard the president of South Africa, who's a member of BRICS, who also spoke of reparations. And I believe the reparations is the key. And reparations, the reparation has already begun, because in your introduction with the FOI commercial, it talks about reparation, or it talks about let us make a man. And slavery has robbed the blacks worldwide through the transatlantic slave trade of our culture, our religion, our economy, our brain drain, and I can go on, and then even killing the leaders that tried to mitigate and repair us, even destroying the 60 to 100 towns that we tried to build after slavery. So, and the reparation, when we're talking about the brain drain, we're talking about the not only the what we have contributed to build North America, but think about all of the inventions that are still at the U.S. Patent Office that we have not received any kind of monetary gains for it, because we were listed as property. And when you're listed as property, that is a human rights violation. And even I heard the president of China speaking recently about reparations. So I think reparation is the key. It's nothing new. They've given reparations to the Japanese. They've given reparations to Germany after World War II. And I think that America still gives reparations today to the state of Israel. So if they can do something brand new by setting aside land, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan published on the back page of the Final Call what God intends as reparations, and the messenger told him to speak for the whole. So Minister Farrakhan speaks for reparations for those of us in the Caribbean, those of us in Canada, those of us in Central and South America, those are the Latino brothers, the Mexican and Hispanic brother. The messenger told him to speak for the whole. And I believe that the Million Man March was part of the reparation movement, repairing the mind, because in the article, it talked about blacks uniting in the diaspora. So the Million Man March was a culmination of all of the blacks that struggled and our great black leaders who wanted us to unite. And they united under the spirit of God's coming through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And every single black leader that was present that day, every organization have a role to play to unite and empower blacks in America. So we need to unite behind the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and we need to learn from those who are striving to do business on an international level. For example, what can we learn from using the US dollar as the reserve currency? What is Iran learning? What is China learning? Because the article spoke about an import-export United States bank. Who controls that bank? The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said to us that Rothschild said he doesn't care about the politics. He wants to control the money. So recently, before BRICS, something happened to our beloved brother and leader, Muammar Gaddafi. Where's his gold? What happened to him uniting the continent backed by a gold currency? Why did they take him out? Where is the gold? And when those that are on the United States Security Terror Council voted not to destroy Libya and Africa, but let's remember, Libya is in Africa. So all of the wealth that's under the floor of Africa that Brother Gaddafi wanted to give to us under the leadership of Minister Farrakhan, remember, he's just given us back what belongs to us because Libya is in Africa. Let's keep in mind. And then the State Department and the United States government blocked those funds from coming to Black America. So that intermediary, that person that's between us, that enemy that is still prevalent, that is controlling the central bank and the reserve currency, are teaching lessons to China and Russia and Iran by freezing their assets. They were doing business with America, and if America and the Terror Council decides to block you and they don't like you because you're going against their self-interest, they can freeze your money. So we have to be linked up, because the article talked about overcoming hurdles that to unite the diaspora and Black Africa. So to unite, we need to unite with our own digital currency, maybe our own. We need to join maybe the BRICS system so that we can get around this reserve currency that is not backed by gold and is not backed by silver and is not backed by any commodity. But as the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says in my conclusion on Message to the Black Man on page 287, he said the United States and NATO and Europe, their money is backed by their bombs, their weapons, their bullets. That's what it's backed by. So the Russia and China are learning, and we should be learning what they're learning, that because they have nuclear power, we can see the war of Armageddon is on the horizon, because business is warfare. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much. Let me reserve to come back later after hearing from my wonderful colleague, Brother Gabriel, to hear his take on this article, beautiful article. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, dear brother. And we might not get a second round since it's already 8 o'clock. Time flies. And of course, to our listening audience, we are learning to optimize this. We're just getting started. None of us are professional broadcasters, but we're just brothers trying to help the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, trying to engage the community and start a conversation, especially among our diaspora, using the #1 newspaper in the world, the Final Call newspaper. So, Brother Gabriel, would love to hear your thoughts, and centering really on the article, the diaspora currently, the gap between, there's definitely, in my personal view, a gap between what we read and what is actually happening. But what are your thoughts?
I think brother's on mute.
Oh, maybe he's having a little technical difficulty. Yes, are you able to hear me, brother? Yeah, maybe brother's having
but it's very Now I
very
do, but it
choppy.
was breaking so bad during the reading and up to now. So basically, it's choppy, right?
Yes, 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 brother. So
Is my voice chopping bad?
no,
Right, 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 right.
you're not
Well,
chopping bad,
I don't
brother.
know
You're
if
not
I
chopping
must
bad.
continue or just.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, brother. We can hear you.
But actually, I can barely hear whatever you say because it's choppy. But just
Okay.
stop me
Well,
or message text message me if it breaks too bad for my part, and I'll just stop
yes, sir.
because there's no point if people can hear me.
Yes, sir.
I just can't hear you, brother Roger. Okay, you can hear. Perfect. Let's try. I've managed to hear some bits of brother Abdul Sabir, who I'm sure was very interesting. Bismillah Rahman Rahim, and I know he touched some little points that I wanted to tell. The article, the first thing that came to mind is that conference is actually the 123rd annual conference, and this strikes me very much because Madame F, an investment lawyer of Nigeria, is reported in the article saying that, and you mentioned, brother Roger, all of this is talk. All of this talk is all talk until we can do that, meaning whatever they had planned. So, and she says, because no one person in this room is a single solution to Africa. Now, so to me, it means if it's the 123rd annual National Black Business Conference, and we're still saying that all of this talk is all talk until we can do that, then to me, the progress is slowed down. And as we discussed last week, from the time and what must be done, part 12 of Africa might or must have something to do with this slow progress. And what do I mean by that is that even the United States government also must have a hand in it to slow the progress of Africa, basically through International Monetary Fund, for instance, central banks, and economic hitmen. I've heard Brother Abdul Sabir mention Message to the Black Man, and I want to do the same because it reads on page 36 that the black men in Africa are fighting and dying today in unity for their independence. And that was published in 1919. So it's very relevant because the unity of Africa, free of the oppressor's influence, is a necessity. And that has not yet been achieved on paper, independence. And despite even also all the coups or revolution going on right now, as discussed again last week. So if you haven't watched the pilot that we did, go check it out to understand what I'm saying. And furthermore, I was troubled by what I read reported from Tamara Maxwell of the Export and Import Bank of the United States. And that's something that Brother Abdul Sabir precisely pointed out because it's very important because according to her, she wants to encourage black business owners to connect with that bank, and like brother owns that bank, basically. So I'm not throwing the sister under the bus because I'm really confident that she's actually well intended. But like Brother Abdul Sabir said, who owns the bank? It was founded by an executive order in 1934 by President Roosevelt. It's run by Caucasians. So why not promote a black bank instead of going through the Caucasian? So, and especially that this bank, the Exim Bank, has been criticized for favoring special interests like Boeing and Enron. So I don't believe we can trust them, actually. Despite that they're sending a sister to tell us to direct us toward that bank, I just don't think it's the right move to do. So also, like what Abdul Sabir touched, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan tells us from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that gold and silver will be the means of exchange very soon. I can't remember exactly how he said it, but again, Africa is worldwide output in gold. So isn't it interesting for you, brothers, and the people in the audience, that the U.S. Department knows this and tells us that the top 5 producers in 2021 were Ghana, South Africa, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Sudan. And we recognize 2 countries in there, Burkina Faso and Mali, from last week's podcast. So I'll leave it there for now. So I'm going to go back that Africa is capable of having banks with money backed by gold, by sound investment, and open branches in USA to facilitate exchanges with Black business over here with them. So again, why go through the enemy's bank when we have to do for self? As my thoughts might sound negative, but I want to finish on a positive note, because I agree with Madame Maxwell about promoting business-to-business linkages between Black businesses. I'm quoting her, in the USA and businesses in Africa, because this is what Jews have done to be successful during the slave trade and afterwards with legitimate and moral businesses. So the Jews knew they had brethren in Europe and in USA. So we can make the parallel with Africa and Black people in America, the continent. I mean, not only USA, in Canada, South America, whatever. So we should take advantage of that to grow business all over the world. So this, what the Jews did, ensured for them, and we can do the same, that the money is circulating longer within the community before it goes out. Now, it comes to, it all sums up to having a leading thought and going to work. And this is what I can rephrase from Dr. Fomenung in the first session, which was an all-woman panel. That leading thought is to do for self, like Brother Abdul Sabir also mentioned a little bit earlier, while knowing that there's family and altogether, I mean. So that would be my initial thoughts about this article. And God willing, you may have heard me perfectly, because I'm seeing in my screen that I'm a little bit buffering. So inshallah, you heard what I had to say. Thank you, Brother Roger.
Thank you, Brother Gabriel. Thank you both, Brother Abdul Sabir and Brother Gabriel X, for your insightful comments as we delve into some of the news in the greatest newspaper in the world. So thank you for tuning in. Again, like, subscribe, share. This is going to be available on our YouTube channel for the Muhammad Study Group of Montreal, as well as our Facebook channel or Facebook page. So you can go back and re-listen to it. But we want to say, as we close out, that we essentially would encourage everyone. So we read one article, but make sure that you go and subscribe to the Final Call. If you want it on your phone and read the whole newspaper, get the Final Call digital edition. And if you are living in the Greater Montreal area and you would like to receive your copy, your physical copy of the Final Call newspaper every week, the Brothers of the FOI in the city of Montreal are available to deliver to your home. So simply contact us at gem02@gmail.com. That's GEMM02@gmail.com. So on that note, we want to thank you both for this panel. It's already 38 minutes. And for our listening audience, we will see you next week to have these little capsules, 30 to 40 minutes of your time, but reading the greatest information in the world, published by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in the Final Call.
We don't sleep when the sun goes down. We don't waste no precious time. All my friends in the